Recording in progress.
Key on the client.
Six o'clock. I'll call to order the meeting tonight. This is the regular Design Review Board meeting for the City of Milton. I am the chairman, Charlie Roberts. This is a 7-member board with some of our members missing tonight, if you're counting. Appointed by the City of Milton's mayor and city council. We're created for the purpose of holding public hearings and making recommendations and voting on design issues. Design Review Board will review the plans and make the recommendations to the Community Development Director for developments except for single-family residential in the form-based code and overlays districts in Milton. In addition, Design Review Board approves or denies demolition permits and requests and makes recommendations to the Board of Zoning Appeals. And with that, we'll open our meeting and call to order. And I'd like for us to do the Pledge of Allegiance, if you'll accommodate us.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Next, I'd like to introduce to all of you our staff and the board that's in attendance this evening.
Shubha Jangam, Senior Planner.
Robin McDonald, Zoning Manager.
Lee Collins, Westbrook Road.
Doug Haney, Bethany Way.
Reed Casey, Bethany Road.
Charlie Roberts, Freemanville.
Ken Warlick, Hipworth Road.
Okay. I would like to get the agenda approved. If there's any discussion on the agenda, if not, do I have a motion to approve?
Motion to approve the agenda.
No second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Next, I'd like to get approval or discussion and any corrections to the minutes of the March 1st, 2022 meeting.
Make a motion to approve the meeting minutes from March 1st, 2022.
No second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Our first order of business this evening is demolition permits. We have a long meeting tonight, so I would ask that you give us your name and address for the applicants. And we've read your request and we've studied the documents, and so we'll move right into the public hearing and try to make these as quickly as we can make them this evening. I would like to ask the staff and the board to remember in demolitions, you're looking at the demolition of a structure, and first and foremost, is it a historic structure and does it have historic value? Second, I want you to look at whether it's a contributing structure to a historic or village area that reflects Milton's history. After those two things, then we want to make sure it's meeting code and all of the rules have been done and are in place that staff approves, silt fence, rodent, et cetera, all the things that are the normal code issues. So with that, I'd like to call 12580 Crabapple Road.
Mr. Chairman, if I could, I will need to recuse myself for this one.
Okay. And we still have a quorum, Shuba, right? Okay. So this is item 5A, 12580 Crabapple Road, request by Harrison Development. Do we have an applicant?
Good afternoon, Milton Review Board. I'm Jonathan Finucane, address 200 Rivercourt Parkway in Atlanta, Georgia. And we are requesting the demolition of 12580 Crabapple Road in Alpharetta, Georgia.
Do we have any opposition?
No, we don't.
No opposition. All right. Does the board want to discuss this and have any questions for you?
Yep, not a historic building. It's Brick Ranch over on Crabapple Road. It's not registered with the Georgia's Natural Archaeological Historic Resources. It doesn't hold any significant ambience to the Milton area or the surrounding neighborhoods, and the approved preliminary plat is actually more in line with what the Milton Review Board is wanting for the area.
Okay. Does the board have any discussion, questions?
How soon is construction, or what are you going to do with it? Are you going to build a house on it or something?
Yeah, it is approved for a 23, preliminary approved for a 23 plat, single family detached neighborhood. And the construction would be starting. LDP is currently submitted with the city of Milton, and it would be starting construction in the next 3 to 4 months.
Any other discussion?
It looks like all of the outbuildings on here are indicated to be demolished. Are there any buildings that are not going to be demolished?
Nope, everything on the property will be demolished, and they are all non-historic dwellings. What was that?
Tree removals, there
Yes,
will be
tree
a lot of
removal as well. And that is part of our LDP submission.
All right. Do I have a motion on this?
Yeah, I'll motion to approve. Which one is it? The 12580 Crabapple Road for demolition.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next item on the agenda is 5B, 12.
Can we bring Ken out of the soundproof booth?
Yeah, get Ken back. Yes, thank you. We'll bring him out of the jail.
Will be the next get to participate in the next sing-along.
Name that song.
All right, the next item is 5B, 12830 New Providence Road, Alpharetta, Georgia.
Good evening. My name is Jim Scruggs, and
My name is Patrick Gaben. I'm the minister at Interquest Church, the property at the old barn's on.
the property address is 12830 New Providence Road. It's a 5-acre lot, property with currently has a house, a shed, and a barn on the property. It is the barn, the old barn that we would like to demolish. Photographs are included in the packet that you should have in front of you. We estimate the barn was probably built in the 60s for the purpose of having horses. The property no longer serves that purpose, as it is now a church and place of worship. And we would like to demolish that structure. And on that particular property, would like to put up a pavilion, which will discuss also later in this meeting.
Okay, does the board have any discussion or questions? And again, let's look at, is this a historic structure or does it contribute to a historic area?
I don't think it's a historic structure.
We have to ask that when I look
Yes,
at
I
it.
understand.
If it is, I'm not sure what part of history it comes from.
No, it isn't.
The part we like to
Only an age, maybe.
This is one where historic is in the eyes of the beholder, right?
Yes.
All right, run with it, y'all. What do you want to do?
Yep. I'll make a motion to approve the demolition at 12830 New Providence Road.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you. I guess we'll see you again. Are you up next?
No, later.
Later?
Toward the end.
All right, the next item on the agenda is 5C, 2108 Birmingham Road.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, I'm Scott Reese from Reese and Associates, doing business at 13685 Highway 9, Milton, Georgia, 30004. I'm here tonight representing the family wishing to remove the existing outbuildings and part of the driveway on the property located at 2108 Birmingham Road. The structures are not historic, and they offer no cultural or social significance to the neighborhood. So the property owners are going to subdivide the property, build a new house in the back. They need to remove these structures to provide compliance. The wife's mother is going to move into the front house. So that's the reasoning, and that's what we're looking for.
Okay, is any oppositions?
No.
Okay, no opposition. Let's close the public hearing. Does the board have any discussion?
I just had a quick question, Mr. Chairman. The portion of the driveway that's over the property line to be removed, are the neighbors aware of that?
Yes, they are.
Okay. I imagine they're okay with that?
Yeah, it's an encroachment, so yeah, they're.
Also too, I just want to commend you. Your site plans and detail on these are very helpful when we're looking at these. So thank you.
Ken's new, and in 4 or 5 years, he does the best work of anybody I've seen anywhere.
I'm taking notes.
I've looked at least 100.
That's
So
all I
that's
have.
great that you see it too.
I do.
All right, we got a motion on this?
I'll make a motion to approve the demo at 2108 Birmingham Road.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Next item on the agenda is 5D, 2315 Dinsmore Road.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, I'm Scott Reese from Reese and Associates, doing business at 13685 Highway 9, Milton, Georgia, 30004. I'm here tonight representing the Naskell family for their application to remove the existing outbuilding that is encroaching into the side building line and also remove the primary residence and the concrete driveway. So it's 1970s kind of modern style house. Once again, the outbuilding is encroaching into the setback, so we need to remove it to create conformity where they can proceed with a rebuild on this lot. No historic, social, or cultural significance to the structures. We've prepared the site plan. I think you'll see everything should be there. Thank you.
All right, any opposition to this? Hearing no opposition, we'll close the public hearing and ask the board for their thoughts and opinions.
Is the wood on the barn of any value?
Possibly, but I mean, it's not termite ridden, but just, it's a very small barn.
No historic value.
No.
Make a motion. Any other conversations or no? I'll make a motion to approve the demolition permit for 2315 Dinsmore Road.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, we're going to move to a new area, and thank you for everybody working with us and moving those along. We're going to move into courtesy reviews that are primarily variances that will be headed to the BZA. We don't actually vote on these. We recommend, and we have opinions and recommendations that will be so noted and sent on to BZA that may or may not be brought up at your BZA meeting. Item 6A, under courtesy reviews, 4060 Felton Circle.
Andrew.
Hey, good evening. My name's Andrew Noble. I am the homeowner at 4060 Belton Circle, which is right down the street from here in the Heritage of Crabapple neighborhood. I am the original homeowner when the home was constructed in 2015. At the time it was built, the home builder placed my detached garage / carriage house about 1.5 feet over the 10-foot setback line. I had no idea this had occurred. It was not brought up at the time I closed on my house or took occupancy, but I am in the process of obtaining a swimming pool permit for my backyard. And so when the building department was reviewing my current survey, they realized that the corner of the garage was just over the setback line, and they have requested I go through this variance process for the existing garage.
All right, thank you. Did I ask any opposition?
No, but I think they have HOA's approval letter. Is that
Correct, yeah. Yep, no opposition. The HOA
Opposition.
responded. That's,
Okay,
they have no.
all right, we'll close the public hearing and ask the board for their thoughts and suggestions.
I have no issue with it.
Tell them.
Yeah, I have no issue with it. I would support it.
Okay, Lee?
I'm in agreement.
Reed?
I just have a question for
Sure.
staff. Did the builder just build it over the lot line as from what was approved, or?
I think they, when they platted, it was supposed to be just 1 foot over, but then it was built 2 feet over.
Got it.
Yeah,
Okay.
I'm not sure, but
Sounds like it was just a miss.
So
Yeah,
I
that's
think,
unfortunate.
so your opinion is?
What I would say is, just based on if we're giving recommendations, I would recommend where you've got the HOA approval, which I think that is great, but also is if you're going in front of the board, is to maybe have your neighbor just sign a letter saying that they're cool with it as well. And so you just have support from a directly affected neighbor to have as documentation for you as well, the board.
Any issue with the next door neighbor?
no issues. I don't, it's the one person on our street. I don't really talk too much. I don't know him well at all.
All
You know,
right, well, that's a suggestion.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Suggestion.
So I think we all feel compassion for you here. And since two of us are builders, we know that this happens
It never happens.
rarely, but it happens. So I think our recommendation to BZA is, this is really a hardship case. The house was, you bought it already built, correct?
I bought it as a new construction build, yeah. Matching
Okay,
with-
so they built, you bought it, and they built it, and then
Yes.
you closed on it. It was never picked up.
It was never picked up, no.
So if there was ever a hardship case, this is it. So I think we're unanimous in suggesting to BZA that we really support it, and he ought to get his variance. All
I
right,
would just
thank
make
you.
a comment, just for your information, that we're looking into adding a requirement that whenever there is a building that's within so many feet of either an easement or a setback line, that the builder would have to provide an as-built of the foundation so that they would know ahead of time if, they were going the wrong direction. So that's something it's in the works right now, so.
That'd
just
be
wanted to
very
let you
good.
know.
That's great.
All right,
Too late for you, but
Thank you.
yeah.
Thank you.
All right, you guys have a good night.
good luck with BZA. Item 6B, 13424, is that Hipworth Road, Milton, Georgia, is the next case.
Good evening. My name is Ashley Barton. I'm with Georgia Classic Pool. I'm here representing 13424 Hipworth Road on behalf of Travis and Jenny Doyle. Those are the homeowners. I've got Mr. Doyle here with me tonight as well. We are proposing a swimming pool. It's going to be encroaching into the 75-foot impervious setback. We do have neighbor approval next door. HOA approval is pending, although they don't anticipate denial. If you look at the lake, the way that is, almost every other person along there has a pool. I guess some of the hardships that we were looking at was just how the lot was situated. It's not necessarily a corner lot, but it's on a sharp curve. The way the house is situated, there's not a lot of buildable area back there. We've got the septic lines and the reserve in the front. We do have EHS approval. And erosion control measures, double row silt fence being right there on the lake, drainage. But yeah, any recommendations?
Any opposition?
No, we haven't heard any.
Okay, we'll close the public hearing. I'd like to get on the record, and this doesn't, it has something to do with yours, but it's not directed at your case. We've had a lot of these in the last 3 years. This is not a hardship. This was platted, it was built, and that buffer was there. And so this is not a hardship case. And I want to make sure BZA hears that. That as we look at these, and we see a lot of these, and it's almost like my recommendation, Robin, was when do we say we're going to only have a 65-foot buffer because we're approving these variances into the 75-foot buffer in my 5 years here a lot. And so it's not a hardship when somebody buys a platted lot, a builder builds a house on it, and then later you want to build a pool. And we've had this discussion off and on for the last couple of years, and I want that in the record. And I'd like BZA to hear my comments as chairman, that this is a concern and that we're just ignoring this constantly, which bodes well for you tonight because we have been approving these. And I question if we're going to continue that, should we go ahead and get Planning Commission to change the ordinance to allow for a pool to encroach 10 or 15 feet in the 75-foot buffer. Legally, precedent is very important, and we've been setting a precedent of approving these. So I think Planning Commission and staff needs to look at what we're doing here and evaluate what our policy needs to be. Robin, do you agree this is not a hardship when somebody buys it? And
I don't see it as a hardship, but there may be other ways of possibly lessen the encroachment, or maybe.
And as I looked at it, if they really want a pool, and again, this is what the public wants from us and what the council wants from us going forward. But on this particular plan, the new covered patio is as big or bigger than a pool, and it's not in the 75-foot buffer. So and I'm a builder, so I do this all the time. So we've got a giant patio there, which is really neat, and a large pool, and there's certainly isn't a hardship, and there's a desire to encroach in these buffers, and we're here to be the gatekeepers of the rules, the laws, and the codes. And so I'm going to let the board decide what they want to do, but I want that thought sent to BZA that it's not a hardship. It's a choice, and the amount of disturbance with the patio and the pool is beyond what could be done just to have a pool. But we're going to let the board decide what they want to do on this after BZA's of record. We have training sessions with BZA where we work together, and I think both boards need to look at this situation as Milton's exploding the last 5 years that I've been on the board, and that this issue's coming up all the time.
Can I ask a question?
Yes, ma'am.
Is it something that, I mean, I understand what you're saying, and I understand there's a precedence that's been set. So will that be determined in like the decision here? Is that something that can be kind of determined if that change needs to be made, if there needs to be stricter regulation?
Everything we do is looking ahead, so I'm looking ahead. I'm raising questions, and BZA will make this final decision on your case. And then all of us need to think about the future, and as we are constantly revising things and improving all of our laws, rules, codes.
And I do understand. I think we were trying to propose sod because we are encroaching so much into that, and we do have that cabana covered area to do sod around the pool to make up for the fact that our pool and the covered patio are there as well, trying to mediate there.
Yeah, no, I understand. I'd want to do the same thing. It's just how are we going to enforce this 75-foot buffer with everybody equally, everyone equally? All right, so meeting's closed. Stay put for a minute. And now we're going to do discussion with the board.
Don't you typically have a 75-foot buffer from water for reasons of runoff and whatever else, right? So is there any concern with the slope of this land or anything else in the proximity to the water?
Robin, you want to take that answer on the,
Well, it's, they have another plan where they show the dry well. It's not shown in this one, but we have another plan where they have actually shown dry well where they will be taking care of the excess water and.
So that was my next question. I didn't see it on here. So is there a
Yeah,
proposed
yes.
dry well?
Yes, I don't know why they created two plans, but it is there.
It was a multi-page site plan, and one of them was specifically for stormwater, and our whole plan for stormwater runoff with dry wells and drains going to that.
But the location of the pool and the outbuilding did not change on that. It was just drainage. Is that
I'm
correct?
sorry?
It was just a drainage that's not showing.
Oh,
The
yeah.
plan didn't change.
Correct. It's just adding different details on that page as it relates to stormwater.
That your client would be open to kind of re-looking at the plan as far as the size of the structure and the proposed covered patio, and then just maybe reconfigure to get it, reconfigure the pool as well as the patio to try to get into conformance. I mean, and it's great that you're doing a lot of sod, but at the same time, I think it could be reworked to, eliminate the need for the variance. And that's really what our goal is.
Good.
Go ahead.
I mean, the homeowner, he's here with me if we wanted to bring him up, but I know we did meet before a couple times before I even submitted to try to figure out the design and the feel for it. I think just because of how aesthetically we're trying to get the pool in the center behind the house and just kind of create this whole outdoor space. I think by pulling it in, it was just going to not be the look and the feel they're wanting for in their backyard when they're spending this much money. And I know money is not a factor. I think it's just ultimately what they wanted. But if we want to have questions for Mr. Doyle, we can bring him up as well.
I have a couple comments on this. So familiar with it. I actually live on Hipworth Road. I do want to make sure that it's understood that every house to the left and right of this home has pools that encroach within that 75-foot back or foot back
Now,
or
say-
setbacks, excuse me.
So you're saying and confirming that every house on either side have encroached into the buffer?
Correct.
Okay.
The
That
other
always-
thing,
That just supports what I want us to start looking at is,
Why have a rule if you're not going to adhere to it?
so from my experience with different municipalities, they look at it differently. And the one thing that I look at is they've got most of the impervious surface outside of that 75-foot buffer. And if you look at the definition of impervious surface, water is not one of them. And the fact that they've taken mitigation, a route for mitigation as far as the, flow wells to capture water runoff, and the fact that really the water portion of the pool is actually in the stream buffer. And there's very minimal, what looks like grading in that buffer as well. I think is something to be considered as far as this is, as far as this design is. So knowing that the fact that pretty much like you said, is every house has got the same thing. It's do we look at precedents and then look at design, whereas most of the structure that's actually in the 75-foot buffer is water.
so again,
In case of variances, we do not look at precedent, we look at each case separately. So many times the applicants come with this argument that everybody in the neighborhood has encroached. We don't actually consider that. We look at the site and their own hardship on the site. So that's why we don't bring up those points.
Mm-hmm. I think too is again, and the hardship that I see is not necessarily the pool itself, but it's the fact that 50% of the usable space on this property is stream buffer, both on the western and northwestern side of it. So it really does, with a 60-foot front building setback and a 25-foot on the right side building setback. I'm really just speaking from experience because my house was the same thing. And when you have to push the home back 60 foot on a pie lot like this that basically angles into a stream buffer, I would consider that 50% of the property is stream buffer. So that in itself creates a hardship in my point of view.
all right, Robin, would you write all this up and send it to me before you send it to BZA? Because I want to make sure this really gets on record
Yeah, we
with
will.
these recommendations. Ken's comments, this needs to be the biggest and most broad we've ever written something up.
And I think to Shuba's point, definitely there's not precedence. We look at, and variances, we need to look at them individually, but you're correct. If there's a pattern that occurs, that we have a lot of the same requests, then how it's, the adjudication of that is definitely worth looking at to see if maybe that's something would precipitate changing the ordinance somewhat, so.
All right, so if I can, I do want to remind you of the lawyer's discussion. Precedent is a key legal point, and precedent is in this room right now. And so we do look at precedent, that we are applying the rules and the law fairly over everyone. And honestly, precedent leans toward her getting an approval this evening, because we have set a precedent, as Ken points up, on either side. Now, just for the record, I think the 75-foot is unreasonable. I thought that 20 years ago when they put it in place, and I would support you in 1 minute. But we have had a habit for 3 or 4 years of doing this. So why do we have the law? I would point out to Ken that legally, once that builder plats it and decides to put a lot with not much buildable space, it is not a hardship. It's an economic benefit to the builder and a profit motive to use that lot as he did. And he sold it as a buildable lot. You can't come in here later and say, I have a hardship because I bought a lot with a lot of creek on it. I live on 18 acres and only 8 acres is buildable or usable. It's all in the 75 foot, 50 and 25. Now I love my creek, I love my trees, and I love what I have. But I probably couldn't get an approval to put a pool in that 75 foot. And so you're the innocent bystander, but it's 2022 and we need to look at some other things, Mr. Doyle, that are out there. And this is one we need to do. This is probably our 30th approval of an encroachment into the buffer. You agree with that?
It's not an approval. We're not approving.
Yeah, you're not approved, but recommendation. And BZA is interested in getting this thought through too. So let's write this up as a discussion tonight.
We got these here.
I think the other thing to note
See
too
it.
is, sorry, Mr. Chairman,
You're gonna see
is
it from the road.
when I pulled the plat, when I built my home, this lake is actually a retention pond. But because it's considered state waters, that's why you've got those buffers in there. So all the drainage from the neighborhood itself drains through a system of storm sewer and into that lake. So I think if we're going to start getting into what stream buffers are, then we can look at, you know, what classifies a lake versus a detention pond.
So with all that said, I want these board members to ring in. I'm going to tell BZA, my recommendation, and we'll see what the group wants to do, is to approve this because we have done that in the past. And I would recommend they approve it, but that this question needs to be dealt with. And at some point, you've done precedent so many times legally, we're required to apply the law equally to everyone. So where I am tonight is recommending approval because we have done this so many times. And it would be unfair and bordering on illegal not to approve it tonight because we have for so many others. And we need to deal with whether we're going to do this or not. And this one's pretty excessive because you've got such a big patio and you could put that pool out of the buffer. But I understand I'd want a big patio too. So that's the issue. Now I want you all to ring in as you send this recommendation forward.
I agree. I mean, I assume the patio is the size it is because you're putting in so much sod around there to get rid of the fact that it's impervious, which I totally agree with. I'm good with it. I also think there's not one natural lake in the state of Georgia. They're all dammed up in one way or another. So it's somewhat silly to me, but so I totally agree. I approve.
Lee, you got a comment?
Pretty much the same comments you guys have had. It's, you know, it's the best layout. I get why they want to do it, but
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I sort of agree with Ken that you do have about 50% of this lot. And with the curved shape of the front, if you try to slide the patio over, you're going to see it from the front. Probably wouldn't look as good. So from the placement standpoint, I'm good with it.
Okay, so we're going to recommend to BZA that they approve it for the reasons everyone said, and the precedent is we have been approving these. And then I'd like to see staff and the planning commission start looking at this and let's dig into what we're going to do so we can do it fairly with everyone. Okay, thank you.
I appreciate your time.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I think if, just a recommendation to staff is if you maybe just cap it at a certain impervious surface within that or surface area. So since the precedence has been set of the encroachment, just look at maybe capping it of an
so look at the
impervious.
percentage we've allowed or we've recommended.
Look at maybe the previous, approvals
I
over
mean,
the
the
last
actual-
3 years, see what that percentage is and then get the average and then that be the allowable percentage of impervious coverage within that 75-foot setback.
A staff approval or just automatic? Yeah, just automatic.
Maybe you can have an administrative.
Yeah, administrative.
That would be in the details, but I think that's probably a pretty good way to go about it is because then you say, okay, yes, we're looking at allowing these, but it's going to be to a certain standard and certain size that,
I mean, I think the overall the addition of homes, it adds to the community. Doesn't need to be abused.
But the key legal question here is who decides what's abuse? So all the things y'all are saying have to be applied fairly and equally to everyone.
I don't know how you apply things fairly and equally to everyone.
I-
It doesn't make
Well,
sense.
here, but it's also,
Or
like,
an
what's,
adju- an
but what's the intent? The intent is to protect whatever waterway is back there, right? That's the whole reason why you have setbacks. So,
Well, if I may,
Mhm.
it's not for us to decide any of that. It's a law that's on the books. There is a 75-foot and a 50 and a 25. That's on the books. It's not our place to write law, change law. It's our place to enforce law. And you could say you can go 5 feet and do a foot measurement, which is worse, 500 square feet that's 5 feet deep into the 75 feet, or it's 20 feet or 25 feet in a narrower piece, but it goes closer and closer. Idea being 75, you're cleansing the water, 50 feet, you're cleansing the water. The 25 is absolutely do not touch it and don't go in there. And all this comes from 30 years ago. And actually, I've litigated this case once in Peachtree Corners when I was the applicant. So it's not our place to decide abuse or whether they're good folks or whether it's a hardship. It's not a hardship when you buy a lot and all these buffers are on there, or they would not have gotten a land disturbance permit if all these buffers are not clearly shown.
Then goes back to it's each on its own merit.
How many times in 5 years have we said to builders, well, you're cramming all these lots on and there's this itty bitty little piece to build on, and most of the 1 acre lot is in the buffers. But the builders continue to do that. I would too. You know, you want all the yield you can get out of your piece of ground. And up here in the foothills, we have lots and lots of creeks. And I, for one, think the 75-foot is extreme. 25 is great. 25 more is good. Beyond that, you know, I question it. And then also, and we're having this discussion with others in the city. At what point do we have this policy and stamp the drawings on the LDP not suitable for a pool? That is what I've moved to do, and I've mentioned to a law firm, they need, the LDP drawings need to be stamped, not approved for a pool. Or we need to plan on giving everybody a pool that has a 75-foot buffer. That's what we can only do, is apply the law evenly and fairly over everyone. Yeah. But we're making law by constantly, in a way, breaking the law. A hardship, we have those cases where something got built in Fulton County 25 years ago, and they come in now and they bought the house, was built, it was permitted and CO'd in Fulton County. That's a real hardship.
But at what point is the city lawsuits if we don't apply things fairly? If that, you know, people have been getting recommendations from us and a variance allowed regularly, the person
Again,
that doesn't.
As Bob has said to all of us, we're growing way faster than we ever have in the last 3 or 4 years, and we're seeing a lot of new problems that we just didn't have for the first 10 years as a city. And the way we fix these things is have these discussions, send them to BZA, get BZA looking at it, and get staff looking at it, and then the planning commission, seeing if they want to pass a rule. You can say number of feet. In some municipalities, they're real flexible on 10 feet of encroachment into the 75. Doesn't matter to them about square feet, but over 10 feet, it's not it's beginning to be an encroachment. And I had a case in Peachtree Corners, and they said the max we're going to let you go is 10 feet. You know, you can do it the whole length of the buffer, but more than that, you need to redo your site plan. So there you go. All right, long case, but important case to get done. And you've got your plan, and Robin, I want you to write that up, and we'll present it to Bob and the city attorney, and I'll present it to the mayor and council, that we start looking at this.
I agree that it needs to be looked at, yes.
Because we don't make law. You don't make law, and we can't do what we're doing on and on into the future. Mr. Doyle, thanks for your time on this.
You left.
Oh, he left.
Yeah, I think
He said you're welcome.
Okay, good. Good. Well, it's just, some cases require us to have these discussions. Let's move on to item 6C, 12630 Crabapple Road.
All right, my name is Joshua Barnes, and I'm with Working and Associates, representing Itasca Walk this evening. Address is 12650 Crabapple Road, Suite 200, Milton, Georgia, 30004. And Rob, for the record, I don't know if you need to change this in the minutes, but my name is UA, not WA.
That was my mistake.
It's okay. It's okay. So I'm here before you tonight for a courtesy review for a special use permit for an indoor auditorium. And it sounds probably a little bit bigger than it really is, but it's called The Rooftop, and it's similar to Thrive, but instead of, individual office suites, it's going to be for smaller events. Like, think of HOAs that don't have a clubhouse that need a place to meet, and they can meet in our rooftop space. It's just over here above Simply Bliss, 2 stories above where Savvy's coming in. And men's groups can meet there, women's groups can meet there, Bible studies, things like that, dinner parties. It sounds, like it's going to be a bunch of indoor concerts, but it's going to be indoor events. So, and we have to come before you guys because it's a special use permit. It's a little bit unique, but it's all really inside. And it's completely built out and finished now.
Well, I'd remind us, and I think that it's in the package, that it's outside too, and we approved the patio a year or so ago.
Yeah, 2019, you approved the
Yeah,
outside.
so, which was a big give at the time to put a patio out there. So now it's inside, but it's also doubled the square footage. Do we have any opposition? Okay, no opposition. Any more?
You have any questions for me?
Let's see if we do.
What's this going to be used for when it's not being rented out? I mean,
I would say probably 80% of the time, no one's going to be up there. It's going to be an empty space. But if I needed to go give a presentation, or one of our businesses, say Main Street Financial, Jameson Wealth Management, they need a bigger conference room, they can go use it. But I would say majority of the time, it's probably going to be sitting there empty.
Okay, my concern is it could produce 190 cars. Because if there's 190 people, these kind of events, the majority come alone. My biggest concern here is parking. Crabapple Market is limited on parking now. It's always a parking problem. And I just see this as a giant issue with 190 cars. So I want you to think about cars at a place where there's not enough parking now. There's never enough parking.
There's also not enough event space too, just like this. I mean, you could use something like this. I mean, I don't know if this is going to be every weekend kind of rager. I don't know if that's what it's going to be, but there's not enough meeting space. I mean, you can go to Starbucks, but trying to fight noise there and talk to people, it's a double-edged sword.
Well, I can tell you, we own the property too. We develop the property and we are very sensitive to parking. We get that comment on a regular basis from our businesses and we are very sensitive to that. Our intent is not to have 190 people up there. That's probably never going to happen.
Are you open then to a limitation on number of people?
I would only like whatever we can do based on fire code, because I don't want to limit us, but I don't see that happening. We're not going to have big weddings up there. That's not what that's built for.
But in what case would you ever have 190 people there?
I can't think of any, but I would hate to limit us on that just
Right.
because.
I'm just thinking, I understand if the concern is it's an HOA, people are coming individually. I can't imagine a meeting of 190 people where everybody's coming individually. I would have to imagine there'd be couples coming to whatever this is.
Or walking.
Or walking because it's in close proximity to where they live. So it's probably far less than that.
And if we had anything like that, like we have events on the green, that's our green as well. And we come up with a parking plan, right? And you
What
make
are the
sure-
most people you've had at any event on the green?
On the green, I didn't count, but like the opening weekend.
More
we
than
had the-
190.
More like
Oh, yeah,
five-
like
5 to
1,000.
700.
Yeah, probably like 1,000 on the opening concert.
Right.
And you just got to plan it to where, at 8 a.m., not to say you're going to have 190 people at 8 a.m. At 8 a.m., nobody's here. Retailers aren't open, it's just basically offices.
Here's what I would say that I want to be on the record on. Whatever happens in 3 years, this is one I want to be on the record. I think there's a parking issue here, and you're an entrepreneurial company, and if a wedding wants to go there, you're going to sign it up, and you're telling me it's HOA, and you're telling me how you'll hardly ever use it. Someday you may not own the building. We make decisions based on 50 years into the future, and this venue will become extremely popular, and it will be packed because Reed has been clear with us, there is a need. And where there's a need, they're going to fill it up, and there's going to be 190 people in there. And it isn't going to be a cute little HOA driving over there and using this. This is a high-density commercial area, and it's going to be used because it's pretty neat. The deck gave you something really special, and this is going to be highly used, and you're going to fill it up. And I'd like to see a limit on, you're saying you're not going to use it. Rarely will it ever be full. It'll be 2 people in a car. Everything you're saying, and let's just put it on the books that you are restricted to a certain number of people.
Can
I
I,
agree and I disagree. I mean, we're just sort of being speculative here. I mean, men's groups meet at 7 a.m. in the morning. I mean, this is something that a need is there. There are men's groups that just have to find
But
office space.
How many people?
There, a men's group is a small.
I'm just
so
suggesting-
a couple limitation would not impact that in.
Yeah, Reed. you're
Not
going-
at all.
You're headed somewhere where you're trying to make this work. I'm fine. How many people are going to be in your men's group at 7 a.m.?
I'm
20,
just
30,
saying
50?
that, I don't know if you need to limit it on parking or not. I can't think of an event that they would have 190 people, but whatever.
Facility you're thinking rather than.
Yeah, let's limit it to this 2 people in the car, HOA, this men's group, this religious group. Let's just say that's going to be 50 people because that's what you're selling us today is 50 people.
So let me ask you, just playing devil's advocate, what's the harm if they did have a wedding up there?
Yeah,
and
that's
they
what I'm
had,
trying to think. Like one time out of the year, you had 190 people.
if
So
they had,
what?
if they had 190 people up there and they're all either coming in pairs or they're Ubering, and it's when all the shops underneath are closed anyway because it's at nighttime for a wedding. Like, where's
There's a
the
bunch of
We have
restaurants.
Crab
so
Apple
they're not
Fest once a
closed.
year that has
There are
40,000 people come
restaurants.
into Crab Apple.
Can I ask a question for staff?
yes, because I would like to, I'm sorry that I didn't preference, being a use permit, it is a action of zoning. And the reason why we have use permits is exactly for this reason, is that there can be conditions added to the use. And obviously the applicant is stating 190 maximum attendees based probably upon what's allowed per code in the building. But there's other things that we look at. So, if you guys can definitely give your recommendations that it's going to go toward the planning commission, but there's items like whether the use is consistent with comprehensive land use plan, compatible land uses and zoning districts in the vicinity, the effect of proposed use on traffic flow, vehicular, pedestrian along adjoining streets, location and number of off-street parking, the amount and location of open space, protective screening, hours and manners of operation, outdoor lighting, ingress, egress. So things like hours and manner of operation, that's something that we're going to be looking at. They can have their requests, but it doesn't mean that that's exactly what they're going to get. It'll go through a process of deliberation with you all, with the Planning Commission, and ultimately the City Council. And that's where the final conditions will be made that will consider hours of operation, maximum number of attendees, et cetera. So I don't want you to think that it's just, floating in the air somewhere, but there at the end of the process, there will be a set of conditions of how to operate it.
And our purpose tonight is to send our recommendations forward on our issues.
Correct.
And that's what I'm trying to do. And if you went back in the 2019 records, you all talked about this was going to be a small gathering place on the patio, 20, 30 people. If we go back and look at the film of that period, we talked about a small number of people. And then I get this, and it's 190, which is certainly not what was discussed in 2019.
190 is based on the occupancy load allowed by fire code. So in theory, any one of our offices over there could max out their max occupancy based on fire code for, if they had an open house. They could be a bad neighbor and have 150 people there at lunchtime and park out in front of the Old Blind Dog. We would have to deal with that.
Yes,
So,
but they have the rights now.
They have the right to do that.
And they can. And many times you can't get in on a Thursday, Friday, Saturday night. You can't find parking at the Old Blind Dog because it's full. And there's more restaurants coming, which is great, more success. Our job is to look at what we're going to recommend, which will be reviewed by Planning Commission and Council. And our recommendation is supposed to, again, be gatekeepers that think about these things and think about what's there now. Robin read all the facts, how it affects, and if you want to read that again, Robin, how this decision will affect this area. And you do one, a bar, restaurant, you do two, you do four. At what point is it in the harm's way to continue to do this density of parking and alcohol in this Crabapple area?
So I would like to state that when we purchased these buildings from the Donnelly House all the way down to the Old Blind Dog, parking was even worse. There was a significant shortage of parking. It was about 2.2 per 1,000 square feet. And since that time, we've overparked the rest of the buildings to make up for that. Now, it still doesn't lay out that well because the parking's right there in front of the Old Blind Dog. It's kind of light. There's nothing we can do about that unless we demo the park. But we do comply with all the city ordinances, and we overcomply. The parking ordinances with the city of Milton are 3.5 per 1,000, and we're above 4 right now. And it lays out a little funny, I
But you
understand.
won't be. And remember, I'm a retail developer too. So I've done this 50 years. If you keep getting more approvals, then at some point you're not where you're describing you are now. Each one of these variances are uses of another 190 cars. That space is how many square feet?
It's about 3,000.
3,000. So at 4 per 1,000, there'd be, what, 120 people in there? No. What is
No,
4?
way less than that. If you look at it on it by itself, that wouldn't work out, but you have to look at it in totality with the rest of the shopping center.
You do. So I want to put this on the record. This building and this space has been permitted and built based on what you just said, the total area. You are asking for a significant change to that, which changes your permit, changes what the overall center's been built on as you go to, Doug, help me with 3,000 feet, 190 people. How many cars is that going to be? That's going to be.
Am I your human calculator? Give me a second.
So
I have a question. Why is the special use permit required for this? And my question is for like the piano bar. I'm assuming the piano bar can have 190 people in there. Why do they not have to have a special use permit for that when it's essentially the same principle as far as space? Am I incorrect?
The use permit is required based upon the form-based code and the table, and then the various uses, and it's either, items are either by right or by warrant, which is administrative approval, or by a use permit. And for this type of use, it requires a use permit, and the Billy Allen's does not require. And I understand that comparison. I can see where you're going with that.
Mm-hmm.
But based upon the use, it's not. So like if they had decided to open this as a restaurant, there would be no use permit because a restaurant is allowed by right. Now, one could argue that you might get almost 190 people in there as a restaurant. Probably not, because you have tables and a kitchen. But, again, if you are a really popular restaurant, you could be packed every Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Wednesday. And
so that would not require a special.
it does not
use permit.
require a special use permit. I mean,
So
the
we're really
system isn't
arguing whether this
perfect, but
place has a
that's-
kitchen or not.
Right.
What's that?
We're really arguing of whether this place has a kitchen or not.
No, actually, that is fire code is separate from zoning code.
Mhm.
So from zoning code perspective, we require a use permit. But the fire code looks at the structure and the exit plan and stuff like that. And so they don't need a use permit for 190 people over here at the restaurant or here. It's just the zoning code that requires.
No, I think but Ken's comment is if he was looking to officially make that a restaurant, we wouldn't even be having this conversation.
It's used-based permit. So
But when you get
And
into a
that's
restaurant,
how
they're
it
going to
is,
look at
yes.
tables and seating in the kitchen, and a lot of other rules come into play. Just big picture. Do you agree that generally retail is 10 per thousand?
10 spots? No.
Not for general retail. I mean, typically it used to be.
So that's the
our-
extreme, right?
So let me let you know, just remind you that it used to be our parking ratios were 10 per 1,000 for restaurants. That was the most of any kind of retail commercial. The regular retail was 4 parks, 4
Yes.
cars per 1,000. Office was like 3.8. That was medical office, and then regular office was 3.
So we could just kind of say in this case, 10 per thousand used to be, and that's kind of the number. And I would point out that that would be 30 parking places in a restaurant because of the tables and all the bathrooms and the way that formula works out. And for sure, restaurants, generally people are coming together. So that is out there as a fact. So we're now talking about 190 people. So let's say 80 rode together, half rode together. That's 80 parking. That's more than a restaurant requirement because this is a venue and it is going to be a wedding. It's going to be all of that. If it's really this men's group and this religious group, then let's just cap it at 50 and send that recommendation forward. But Mr. Applicant, you're asking to have 190 people in there. So you're not operating and asking under the fire code and use codes for a restaurant.
So
Because you wouldn't have that kind of occupancy in a restaurant.
let me clarify a few points. So under Crabapple Crossroads, it was the mixed-use zoning, MIX, done by Fulton County. And under the MIX zoning, there was previous to the parking changes at Milton, there was a parking calculation based on use and time of day, and you would take the maximum amount of parking needed. So it was this really complicated table. And the city of Milton did a great job and simplified it to 3.5 per thousand across the board, unless it's residential. If it's commercial, it's 3.5 per thousand because you're going to have a blend of needs. You're going to have some restaurant, you're going to have some office, you're going to have some retail. And so The requirement right now that we live under is 3.5 per 1,000. Now, the 190 came in is what the architect did is based on an assembly use, on what that space was quantified for as rated assembly use was 190 occupants. That's max on the fire code. We're not saying that the events are going to be 190. We're not saying that they're going to be 50. I'm saying it needs to be in the reasonable discretion of the business owner to be a good neighbor, because the owner of that space and the operator of the rooftop is actually, part owners of the Old Blind Dog, owners of the center. We have every incentive to be a good neighbor. And if not, we'd hear about it. But it's up to us to, plan the events and be a good neighbor with how we plan out the parking. But to have, restrictions on it, I mean, the reason we're having to go through this process is because when we filed for this and this build out in crabapple form-based code, there was not a category in which this fit, but we felt like there was a need. So we're going through this process.
Okay, so in the entrepreneurial process, you've got an empty space and you want to rent it, and you've come up with an assembly idea. I get the entrepreneurial, money-motivated decision. And last, in 50 years, any business that's doing great in a shopping center is going to max it out and not be a good neighbor. That just doesn't happen out there in the retail world. The Old Blind Dog's going to pack it. Union's going to pack it. 7 Acres is going to pack it, and there's never enough parking. My concern, and I'll close on this, I'm on record. We've got it filmed. I think this is a disaster if you put 190 people up there, and I think you will succeed. I think it's a great idea. I think it's a great use. I think it's a very successful area, but that's not what our charge is. To agree with you, it's a great idea. It's a beautiful place. Our charge is to enforce the codes and to understand what we're approving and what uses we're letting happen. Then when you go back to code and permit, there's more restaurants than we thought we would have here because it's a high gathering place. But every restaurant, every alcohol permit, and you don't have a kitchen, but it will be highly catered. Okay?
How are there more restaurants than we planned?
The density didn't expect all the restaurants let's say they didn't. Let me take that back because I don't want to go down that road. I want to stay on the road of 190 people in this location with the parking that's out there now. And we know you can do 190. We have to plan on 190. And I've asked you, my request as one board member was to cap it to your presentation of men's group, women's group, and religious groups, which sounds great. And I think that's probably 20, 30 people. And I'm all for this. But this is going to be packed with 190 all the time. I am a partner in a venue in Savannah. And from the day it opened, we've been packed. And we're right at the fire code number all the time. Venues are really popular. Destination weddings are really popular. Destination get-togethers are really popular. And you're going to cater it, right? If somebody has a get-together, it's going to be catered. So food will be there. Is that right?
Yes.
And alcohol will be there, right? Well, not with the
Probably.
men's group or the religious group.
I mean, at some point, there's probably going to be a dinner there that has alcohol, yes.
Well, and rather than skirt it and say there might be, there will be. You know that people that have parties and venues have alcohol.
Well, I know that I'm not going to be providing it, based on our insurance.
You're just
and
renting the
everything else.
space. I understand that's your business model, is to rent the space. And I'm all for it. I think I led the motion to approve your patio in 2019, and I love the project and everything you're doing. It's fantastic work. There's a parking issue over there, and 190 people. My request for Planning Commission and Council will be to limit the parking and the number of people that can be there, because I think that solves the problem.
I just want to make a quick note. Seeing as how you guys own the rest of the building, right? I would think that if it becomes a nuisance and parking becomes an issue, and then it takes away from the tenants that are currently there, then that's still going to be your problem as well.
Oh, absolutely.
So I would think that there would be, if that was the case, there would be an act on y'all's part to try to alleviate that or rectify it. I believe that the fire marshal saying that he feels 190 is good. We just leave life safety to the fire marshal. I do agree with Charlie on the parking, but I also like the fact that this area, this city center it is inviting walkability. And I feel like a lot of people, utilize these restaurants and stuff and walk to those. So I don't necessarily think that there needs to be a need for a certain amount of parking spots for that. So I think if it does go through and you are approved, the parking, if it continues to become an issue, is just going to be a direct reflection on you guys that you're going to have to work with your tenants currently in the building that is going to deter them because of a parking situation. So
I don't see it being so much as being whether you're being a good neighbor or a bad neighbor is you'll cannibalize your other business if
Exactly.
if it's that poorly managed.
Well, and I'd like to point out, the mayor, Peyton Jameson's the neighbor. So if we're obnoxious and unneighborly, I mean,
Fairly
y'all gonna
noted.
hear it firsthand. So I hear about every car that doesn't get a parking spot. And it's from one of our, the partners that own the Old Blind Dog. They let me know.
All right, we've got people waiting, so let's move on here.
Oh, I just have a comment. Maybe for the next meeting, you can present a parking plan to show exactly if you
That's a good
can.
idea.
Can provide for all the, requirement.
Now, let's see what we're going to send forward. I think I hear that 4 of our board is recommending approval, right?
Absolutely.
And I want to be on record that I recommended denial based on the parking issue. And that needed to be looked at. And I love again, I want to be on record. I voted for the patio in 19. I love the idea of a venue. I think it's great. The property is one of the best in the Southeast. Nobody does it better than Adam Orkin. And it's just a fantastic property. I'm highly concerned about the number of people in there and that this venue becomes a problem. That's so we got a split vote here going forward. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, next item is 7A. We're going into final reviews now, so we're changing from courtesy reviews to final reviews. 7A is at 4855 Windward Parkway, Milton, Georgia. We've seen you all a lot this year.
We have. My name is Gary Lowry. I'm with Atlanta Design Associates, 630 Old Orchard Drive, Marietta, Georgia. And I'm representing Dr. Atkinson.
Eric Atkinson, 14415 Wood Road, owner of Dash Development Team and Deerfield Dentistry.
All right, and we're here to present the final finishes of the exterior of the building. And any other questions that you guys have about the project that we have in front of you?
We've reviewed this numerous times. We love the project, and we're just really looking at your finishes.
Correct?
If you would, just kind of walk us through and show us the finishes and let us record that in the record.
We'll kind of start from the ground up, if that's okay. I think one of you gentlemen asked about favors last time, so here they are. And we chose these because, y'all wouldn't know if you want to see them. We chose these because we think they'll blend well with the asphalt. Time they'll darken. Our experience kind of blend well.
Robin, if I may, how are we going to document this in the record? Do you have product numbers or what have you got?
Well, they have, there's an exterior material finishes.
Okay.
On the elevations on the west and north that has specifics, colors, the actual specific manufacturers of.
So you're good with we've seen these plans for a year. So you're good with what you're showing us is spelled out in your drawings? Okay, no changes to the drawings.
One change. The drawings show a charcoal sheet. That was a mistake. One with a slate color sheet.
All right, so let the record show that the drawings have one error or one change. You're going with timberline. And what is the color of that? Slate. Timberline, slate will be the shingles.
That is the one recommendation I was going to make, because I felt like the charcoal was going to be too black based on the rest of your finishes, and the slate is going to be a nicer gray, lighter tone. So
All right, so now if we've got it documented in your plans, in the record, if you'll just show them to us, then we can visually see if the board likes what it's seeing.
That's the slate. Color. The other colors are up here. The one we had previously had was.
We'll just stay with the slate.
can we also make a note too that it's a semi-architectural shingle versus a 3-tab?
So the rock and that's the grout that goes with it. Like the paint.
Any discussion on what y'all are seeing?
I think it looks pretty good. It's not too bright.
We have some metal.
The brick is the Meridian brick.
Yeah, because I think before it was whitish colored brick. Now it's white.
Yeah, we painted it.
Okay.
Okay, so the brick itself is the Meridian brick, the old Williamsburg Queen. The paint color that you're going to be using is going to be the Sherwin-Williams Pearly White. Okay, great, got it.
And again,
The dentist's office.
that's on the plans.
God, that's terrible. You're such a dad joke.
It's a dentist office in Pearly
Oh,
White.
yeah, that's.
It just clicked. Clicked.
My boy's laughing from school. He
Yeah.
can hear that from here.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
So again, all these colors you're showing and telling us you're happy with the plans.
We have a board that areas on the building that are there.
Okay,
The black box, yep.
We have some metal roofing, which is dark brown color,
Dark bronze.
bronze,
Is that a Cenex? What the manufacturer of that?
courage.
Okay.
And then we have dark bronze storefront windows.
okay. Everybody happy? Okay. No opposition? So can I get a motion?
Make a motion to approve item number 7 on the final reviews, 4855 Windward Parkway, Deerfield Dentistry.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, motion carried. Thank you. It's going to be great. It's going to be great.
Thank you for the detail and bringing those in.
Yeah, it's good. Good renderings.
All right, our next and last case here tonight is 7B. 12, there was an address correction here, Shuba, so make sure I'm right. 12830 New Providence Road.
Is it 12/8/30 or is it 21/8/30?
So that
James
was the
Scruggs and
correction.
Patrick
So it's-
Abent
it is
again.
12830, right? Yes. 12830 for the record.
James Scruggs and Patrick Abent. This project involves the construction of an open-air pavilion upon the site currently occupied by a horse barn, which we reviewed earlier in this meeting. The pavilion will provide a new facility where church members and others may congregate and meet for fellowship. The pavilion is expected to increase the overall value of the property. The proposed pavilion is to be 40 feet long by 24 feet wide, which is currently the same dimensions as the existing barn structure, and built upon a concrete slab poured to 50 feet by 35 feet to serve as a patio area for a portion of the pavilion. The pavilion will be constructed of pressure-treated or cedar timbers. 8x8 posts will support beams and a roof with a 6/12 pitch as recommended by the city. The roof will be asphalt shingles. We're going to use architectural shingles, charcoal color. The southern side of the pavilion will be enclosed and clad with 8-inch hardy plank siding to match the existing structures on the property. The southern side will feature 3 each 3-foot by 4-foot faux windows with shutters for aesthetic appeal from the southern point of view. The faux windows will be trimmed with 6-inch trim. Paint and trim for the facility will match the existing structures currently on the property. And there are pictures, in the absence of colors or color chips, there are photographs included in your packets to show you what the existing structures are painted at right now. We're going to build this with an independent contractor secured by us. The pavilion will replace the existing barn and be located on the same site, which is a flat graded surface approximately 60 feet in length and 45 feet in width, sufficient enough to support the planned concrete surface. Drainage and water currently flow to the southeast from that area and will be maintained. Gutters will be installed in the new pavilion and will empty into flow wells as recommended by the city. A foundation perimeter will be dug and soil disturbance will total approximately 1,750 square feet. Silt fence will be employed to an area downgrade of the structure at a total distance of approximately 120 feet minimum. Upon completion, there's expected to be no change to the topographical features of the property. ADA compliance will be met as the pavilion will feature a transition directly to an existing walkway on the property without the need for steps.
All right. No opposition. All right. Let's have some thoughts and comments from the board.
I have a question. We're looking at this specifically because it's a detached structure.
Yeah, that's associated with a
Yeah,
non-residential
anything
use.
not single-family residential will be coming here for.
Understood. So regardless of, even though it's within the setbacks, because it's non-residential, we're reviewing this. Okay.
Is this visible from the road? Is the barn currently visible from the road?
It's right behind the church building, I
Yeah.
guess, but we still need to review it because
Yeah, I'm just wondering.
changes
if you-
happens and,
Absolutely.
It sits almost directly in the dead center of the 5 acres, which is pretty much a square. And you can see, in the wintertime, you can see through the trees to a lot of different structures as you drive down New Providence, but in the spring, in the summer, and the fall, you can't see anything back in there. The southeast or the southern part of the property is heavily wooded. That's to be maintained. So I guess to answer your question, it's very difficult to see it.
Yep.
But we still need to do what we need to do, whether you
Yeah.
can see it or not.
Right, and we,
That isn't part of the code is, does this lot have trees and this one doesn't? So I would just say we need to take the steps on finishes and materials, whether you can see it or not. You may tear the house down up front. You may cut down a lot of trees. Things change.
So you mentioned that the shingles would be charcoal. Do you have the specific color of the existing building? Reason why I ask is typically when clients come in, we kind of really request, to Charlie's, kind of thoughts is to really have those specifics entered into the record for the approval to assure that once the building is constructed, you guys don't paint it pink. And so,
Your paint, same for the paint on the back.
Yeah, so
Yeah, you
Ken,
in the
I think-
photograph, sorry. In the
I was going to say, I think we need to hold this for a month because we don't have any of the finishes that the gentleman who just left had in their plans, and which is a policy the board has, is have all these sample colors and materials to see. And while I love what you're doing, it's going to be great. We want to approve it. We don't have what we need to have a vote on this month.
Okay.
Schubert, right? And I would ask staff not to let it get to this point there's no samples, no colors, this shouldn't have been before us tonight, and you shouldn't have had to wait.
Yeah, and in her defense, it was, she did suggest that we bring those. We didn't believe it was necessary since it was a very simple structure and
We
Just
just need,
oversight. Just
if you've been here all
oversight, no
evening, we need to enforce our policy, procedures, and laws and codes equally over everyone. And if the group that was here before, they got held, they've really done a great job complying with what we want. In the last 5 years, we've had dozens of code enforcements, dozens, that things were not built the way they were approved. And so that's why we've gotten, and it's been my mandate from the council to make sure we're doing what we're supposed to be doing. So I love it. We want to approve it, but we need to know what these colors are going to be. As Reed pointed out, the wall, we don't have any paint colors for the wall. Why are you doing the one wall and closing one end of it?
Well, we're going to also use this to have meetings and outdoor meetings and some services. And the indoor wall kind of gives a little privacy, but as well as a backdrop for whoever's making the presentation.
I've been in North Georgia state parks that have the same thing. If there's any kind of wind or whatever, it helps buffer some of that too. So it looks similar to some of the places that I've been up in North Georgia that would have something similar to it. So you have on there architectural grade charcoal. So that's the color of the roof, right? So we know the color of the roof.
It's going to be a charcoal, yeah. And I know there's a little bit of difference between some charcoals, and we'll do our best to provide a sample of.
Right. So Charlie, you're asking for the exact make, basically
Just
make
like
and
we
model
just did
of the
with
color.
him.
Yep. And then for the color, you've said it's going to be the same color as the structure that's currently there. You just want
That's
the
not
name.
good enough.
You just want the name of the color.
We can't
right?
enforce that.
I
And
understand.
as Reed will tell you, in the last 5 years, we
No,
can't.
I understand. I'm just saying what you're asking from them is the exact color of what that is, right? Same make and model
Yes.
of the color of that is.
We will get, we'll get a sample of the paint, put it on a piece of siding, and then I'll get you the Home Depot brand and the paint.
I think the latter is
paint
probably more
formula.
important because that's what'll get documented, right? Is the,
Right.
The
We
name.
just need a paint chip, as the gentlemen that were just here. They had the actual timberline, charcoal, and all of those defined things, which you've got to have anyway.
Right.
As you go forward.
We'll do that.
My actual, as a builder, I hear you on the end wall. I was wondering why you didn't turn that back 10 more, a total of 10 or 20 feet to make that back corner out of the wind, place to store stuff that doesn't get dusty and dirty. And once you spend the money to do, it looks like maybe 5 feet, you've turned it back. Why wouldn't you turn it back 10 or 20 feet? Creating a little bit of a room back there.
We'll have to take a look at that and see.
Once your framer's out there and once the siding guy's there, you can go 10 or 15 more feet. And the wall's not a problem for us, and it just seems like it would work better for you in the long run.
Yeah, my comment is just, get us some paint samples, the shingle samples.
Yeah.
As far as the drawing and everything else is there, 'cause in my
20
opinion,
feet have been closed.
I don't see any problem with that other than for the record, us having those specific samples and notating those, so.
And Shuba, if you would, in your desire to help people, rather than say you suggest, I think you need to say it'll get held if you don't do it.
I told him to bring it to the
Tell them
meeting.
Charlie,
Yeah,
Charlie's gonna get them.
you shouldn't be on her. You should be on me.
Yeah,
on
we
us.
should.
You should be on me.
We just, and by the way, I have 3 or 4 people, a couple on council, Bob, telling me we're tired of all these code enforcements and this stuff's not in the record. We're looking back over 7 years and we're finding a lot of issues where it wasn't in the record. And then I come from a great city, Sandy Springs. We didn't get things and we ended up with some pink, seriously, purple and yellow was really popular 7, 8 years ago. We have some commercial buildings that are purple and yellow. And we just want to know what we're going to get. And the only way you can do that is if you give us the maker, and this is as much for staff. and the board, we want to have the make, the number, the model, and the color, and we're going to probably approve anything you want to do in good taste, but we just got to have that in the record.
And and we'll do that, but it's a beautiful piece of property and we are keeping in line with nature. And then all the color, the buildings are all the same, kind of that soft yellow and everything. So it kind of matches in and the roofs and everything. We're trying to tuck it in and it isn't really seen. So we'll bring those paint samples and roof samples.
Well, 99% of the time, I'm going to vote for anything that fits Milton, like you said, the soft yellows or whatever. That's your choice, and I respect that. It's the harsher colors or, and we have a term, the Milton brand. It fits Milton. We have a city. We have a city because we had a brand, and Bob set that all up and has worked hard to make that happen in the last 10 years, and we're just here to continue to carry it out.
With that in mind, do we need to know the stain color they'll do the framing in?
Yeah, the stain color. Yeah, you need any finish
Gutters.
that's going to be seen, we need to have a sample and a color.
So we
So
sign up for the next month meeting and bring all our samples and stuff.
we're going to ask you to come back next month.
Stamp it. I love that.
Short month.
I didn't promise to stamp it till I see it. And if you come back with purple, that's going to be a problem.
Yeah.
Do you want to make a motion to defer it, please?
Yes, could I get a motion to defer?
Yeah, I'll make a motion to defer 7B, 21-830 New Providence Road.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you. Can't wait to see it come back.
Yep.
Thank you.
Tell us next month if you're going to enclose more. Think about enclosing a little bit more. Okay, next item on the agenda here. We finished that new business. We have one piece of business I have, so let's do that before yours.
I've got some new business.
You have new business.
New business. Charlie had reached out to me and said that he may have a couple meetings where he was going to be away. Need me to, right? Needed me to fill in, and honestly,
I wanted to give him, get ready, because I'm going to miss a
well,
couple.
I'm
And
happy to do that.
I want to
but-
tee you up.
Well, there's two things. Number one, we actually moved out of our house today because we're going through a massive renovation, and it is chaos everywhere. And anyhow, I've just got a lot of load. And I thought that Ken would just do a much better job. So I've called Ken, asked him if he would do it, but I think this may require a vote.
It
Not
does.
sure.
So the new business is that Reed would like to resign as vice chairman. And so the first is to have a motion to accept his resignation.
Yes.
Hope so.
Well, it's what he wants to do, so we're going to support him in this.
No, you must.
And so we have a second?
A second.
All in favor?
Aye. Okay, done.
Now we have to have an election. So nominations are open for vice chair, and I think Reed has a nomination.
Yeah, I'll nominate Ken.
Okay,
And I'll second.
all in favor?
Aye.
All right, motion carries, so.
Thank you.
we're
Thank
now
you,
on the
Ken.
Vice chairman.
Thank you.
Nice, clean, democratic process there. Okay, now, ma'am, you're up on the new business.
Oh, I just wanted to let you know that we are working on this new software which we'll be using to create the agenda and the packets and stuff like that. So there would be a little change in the look and feel of the agenda. I just wanted to be out there for the next month. Look out. That's it.
So we're going to see a new look.
Right, so it's going to be a whole system that the city clerk is starting to use with the city council, and it'll streamline all the different boards and commissions to be consistent. Then I know from the planning commission, probably for you all, eventually there will be laptops or some sort of
Maybe iPad.
instrument, iPad, whatever, that you'll actually be voting. So the items that you vote on will actually, you'll press a button and then they'll be spread up above. So that way, I know you don't do a lot of final votes, but it's nice. I know I have a problem at the planning commission trying to figure out who's doing what. So that's going to be another part of the new process
System.
eventually. It's not going to happen tomorrow, but the clerk's working very hard on that.
All right, we love progress. So we'll learn what to do.
Can I ask something too in that process? Is there a way on each, obviously the demolition is simple, but on the, say for instance, on our recommendations and stuff like that, is there a way to put, on, like for the Orkin, right, for the outside, is there a way just a brief sentence of why this is coming in front of us?
Oh, yeah, sure.
So for instance, because I looked at the packet and obviously after we discussed, I understood, well, why are we looking at this? Because it's already been approved. What I wasn't understanding is that it was a special use permit.
I
for
agree
that.
100%. I spend most of my time trying to look at this going, okay, what is it that we're discussing here? Why is this
yeah,
coming to
okay.
us?
So I had wondered, is it just because it had lapsed and they had never done anything with it or what?
Did you not, I mean, we can put it up at the front, after the address, we could say, for a use permit for an indoor auditorium up at the
Perfect.
top. I mean, so it's there, it's just it was at the bottom.
Yeah, I don't need a 10-page explanation, just so that way I have a good understanding of what it is exactly that I need to be looking at more closely, other than trying to figure out like, hey, is this, colors the Milton way,
Yeah. And, again, that's why council is staggered on when they're in. They, at each election, they appoint who they want. I don't think I said anything, believe it or not. I know it's hard to believe that I didn't, for the first 4 or 5 months when I came on, because there were a lot of things that we didn't do. As you're here longer, you can call staff. Robbins knows this stuff backwards and forwards. And if before a meeting, I started to send an email to all of you to be heads up on 3 cases. And I decided not to do that, to let it unfold here tonight, but there were 3 cases I knew would be difficult or have controversy. So don't hesitate to call me, don't hesitate to call staff. And really, Bob is so gracious. If you really want to learn or be concerned, in the first 2 years, I probably met with Bob 15 times about how do you feel about this? And is this the Milton way? And what do we think? I think this, but what's Bob think? And I benefited. Of course, he wasn't as busy as he is now. Now he has 2 jobs. But he'll meet with you, especially late in the day, for 30 minutes. Go sit down with him. And he can tell you the history and why a lot of this is important. You all have had 1 legal meeting. We are, in all 3 chairman positions, we're really working on the legal issues. And our meeting was rushed the other night with a lawyer, and he just went by. If you look in his notes, he didn't deal long enough on precedent and the issues of we do these things. And so we've only been challenged legally 2 or 3 times the last 5 years, but we have to be aware of that. And then things like a case, a guy bought property, it had a riding ring that was covered. He enclosed the walls and started repairing cars in there. It became a repair store. And that was a lot of turmoil for a while. Look at the turmoil. You all didn't see it. I went to BZA when the house with the roof on it, and the people went crazy, and the police were called here 2 months ago. Maybe you know about it, maybe you don't know. But that blew up the house. 2 of you went out to see the house. Who went out to see the house?
Oh, you're talking about the one.
Yeah, right now,
Stars.
right next to Rush. Yeah.
On Birmingham Highway.
Well, when that
Yeah.
went to
Oh, wow.
BZA, they found out that they didn't even have any rights to see that case. And one member of BZA said, there's a roof on it. We're not allowed to see it. It can't come before us. And some of the homeowners that were here in opposition really went pretty upset, and we had to call the police. So precedent is real important. Less so up here in Milton because everybody's pretty sophisticated and polished, but we want to evenly apply what we're doing. That was my point. And I've been coached on step up the pace and step up your game on getting these things documented better. And Robin, so I really do want you two to write this report on We must have the finishes in writing and know what we're going to get. It can't be charcoal. And we have, don't let them send it in and come forward without it, because we don't want them sitting here for 2 hours and then they go, well, it's going to sort of be this and sort of be that. Then applying these rules and understanding, if y'all have any time, really understand what hardship means. Everybody says hardship, and rarely are there many hardships. They're just, I want something now different on my lot than when I bought it. And so there you go. And Robin, you know how many we didn't want to use that old Fulton County PUD zoning because most of the lot can be floodplain or down a hill. But if we put a LDP on it and they grade it and build it, and somebody comes in and says 2/3 of my lot's downhill, I only have a postage stamp to build on. They bought the lot. That's not our fault, and that's not hardship. So
They could sell their house in an instant.
yeah, in Milton right now, with or without a pool, it'll sell.
Yeah, exactly.
So anyway, thank you for your listening to all that tonight. Let me get on record on some issues, and there you go.
You need to,
Yes, we're going to adjourn. Any other business?
Nope.
Hearing no business, do I have a motion to adjourn?
make a motion to adjourn.
A second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
If you want to grab your phone. All right.
Back to your madness.
Yeah.